Good morning. Welcome to the News Hub. I'm Rolf Winkler. You thought there might have been progress on deficit talks over the weekend? No, you didn't. And you were right. Democrats and Republicans are still pointing fingers, accusing the other side of refusing to compromise while they themselves refuse to compromise. Wall Street Journal's Peter Nicholas joins us from Washington now to catch us up on the status of the talks and why it could set the tone for the next 4 years. Peter, good morning.
Nice to be with you.
So before we get started, I just want to play a quick soundbite of where the parties were over the weekend.
Do you think we'll get a deal by the end of the year?
I do, because the only thing standing in the way of that would be a refusal by Republicans to accept that rates are going to have to go up on the wealthiest Americans, and I don't really see them doing that.
Well, right now I would say we're nowhere. Period. We're nowhere.
Peter, do we just need to lock him in a room, keep him away from the media? Is that the only way this gets fixed?
Well, there's still a lot of posturing going on both sides, but they're far apart. I mean, there's a fundamental philosophical difference here. Republicans do not want to see tax rates raised. Democrats insist on that. Say President Obama campaigned on that. He won the election. Elections have consequences. So the president does not want to yield. So, you know, there's a few weeks left, but I think Speaker Boehner is right. They're far apart, and it's hard to see where the compromise is going to occur at this point.
Now, we did get some progress to the extent Republicans, for instance, are now putting things on the table with regard to cuts. They said, for instance, when it comes to entitlements, they want to raise the age of eligibility for Medicare. They want to charge higher premiums for wealthy taxpayers for Medicare premiums. They also want to slow cost of living adjustments for Social Security. Is this progress that they're at least putting stuff on the table, or more of the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is progress. I think to some degree, in that President Obama in 2011, when he was talking about when we went through this before, was talking about these same kinds of changes, was talking about changes to entitlement programs, Medicare, raising eligibility age, doing something about cost of living increases for Social Security. So these are familiar arguments that we remember from the 2011 debate, the first time we went through this. So that is some progress, but on the fundamental issue of tax rates, we still seem to be far apart.
Okay, now, how much, let's talk about from the president's angle, how much leverage did the election really give him?
Well, it gave him some leverage in the sense that he did mention this. He did campaign on the issue of raising tax rates for the wealthiest Americans. In 2010, during the lame duck congressional session, the president agreed to extend the Bush-era tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. He said at the time that he was not going to do that again. In the interim, we've had an election. He won the election, and he seems dug in here that those tax rates are going to have to go up. Democrats argued that that has to happen to get the revenue needed to close the deficit. So the president has staked his prestige and credibility on the line, and both the White House and Democratic congressional leaders say he cannot afford to capitulate on that point.
Okay, and that's a good point. His left flank, you have a great quote in your story today, which I want to get to, which Peter DeFazio from Oregon saying, quote, if you cave when you just want a strong mandate in an election, that would set a horrible tone for the next couple of years here in Congress. Now, he's saying strong mandate. I don't know how strong it was, but talk about your story about really how this particular discussion, these next 4 weeks, could really set the tone for the next 4 years.
Well, the president has an ambitious agenda for the next 4 years. He wants to make progress on comprehensive immigration reform. He wants to develop new renewable energy technologies. So success breeds success. So he'd like to get this issue out of the way. He'd like a favorable deal on his terms. He'd like to show and demonstrate that he's the dominant player in Washington. And if he does that, some Democrats think that he can set the tone and he can have a productive second term. If he doesn't do that, if he caves, they're very concerned that he will show that he can be rolled by Republicans. So what happens in the next few weeks, what happens even before he's sworn in for a second term on January 21st, could well set the stage for whether he's going to have a successful second term or not. A lot rides on it.
It's fascinating. I went ahead and caught Lincoln, the movie, and the story about the 13th Amendment getting through before he was inaugurated for his second term. It's clearly not that important, but it's kind of just a fascinating thing to think about as we go through all this mishigas. Thanks so much for joining us today, Peter.
Good to be with you. Great movie, Lincoln.
It was very good. And of course, you know, we hope we're going to have more to tell you in the upcoming days. We'll definitely be following the story, so stay with WSJ Live. If anything actually does change, we'll be here to tell you about it.